Hello again, this is Miss Nakayama, and this is the last lesson for Chapter 8, Matrices. We're doing 8.4 Multiplicative Inverses of Matrices and Matrix Equations. So it's a further development of what we just covered in the last section. So our objectives in today's video is to find the multiplicative inverse of a square matrix, and then to use inverses to solve matrix equations. So part of what makes it the inverse, okay, if you have a square matrix and you have ones down the diagonals and zeros everywhere else, then that matrix is defined as the multiplicative identity matrix of order n, designated with the letter I and a subscript that's a number, and that number is telling you how many rows and columns the square matrix has. Now, why is that important? Because if you have two square matrices and you multiply them together and get the identity matrix, no matter which way you multiply them, actually it says both, then we know that they are inverses of each other. Okay, so you're gonna see a little bit more of those examples. If a square matrix has a multiplicative inverse, it is said to be invertible or non-singular. If it has no multiplicative inverse, it is called singular. Some of y'all really need to pay attention to this, because your calculator, if you go try to find the inverse of a matrix, sometimes it's going to spit back at you the word singular, and you need to know what that means. It means it has no multiplicative inverse. All right, so first off, show that B is the multiplicative inverse of A. This is example 1. Okay, here's A and here's B. So if I want to show that they are multiplicative inverses, then I'm going to multiply A times B. A is that, B is that. So when I multiply them, okay, I have first row, first column is going to be 2 plus negative 1. First row, second column is going to be negative 2 plus 2. Second row, first column is going to be 1 plus negative 1. And second row, second column is going to be negative 1 plus 2. And when you simplify that, you get 1, 0, 0, 1. Now, let's see what happens when we do it the other way, because we just talked about in the last one, you don't always get the same thing. So this time, I'm going to put 1, negative 1b first, and then a. I didn't want to read that too. So now when I multiply, I've got 2 plus negative 1. And then I have 1 plus negative 1. And then I have negative 2 plus 2 and negative 1 plus 2, which of course simplifies to 1, 0, 0, 1. So yes, we can say that B is the multiplicative inverse of A. And of course they told us to show that, but that's how you do that. Now, there is a shortcut, quick method for finding a multiplicative inverse of a 2 by 2. Y'all did this last year. This is the process. Highlight it. Actually, you don't have to memorize it because they give it to you in most of the problems. But you have a matrix. You take 1 over this product, which is downhill minus uphill. And you know, a long time ago, one of my students came up to downhill. Oh, that doesn't look like that. Let's go to a different one. Downhill minus uphill. So we say, duh. Anyway, that's the downhill minus the uphill products. Then if you notice from here to here, we have switched these two spots and taken the opposite sign of these two spots. Okay? And most importantly, when you calculate this part right here, you can only keep going. It's only invertible if that doesn't equal 0. If that thing equals 0, then it doesn't have a multiplicative inverse, and then you're going to say it's singular. Okay, but let's go do this. Use the quick method to find a multiplicative inverse, and I told you they give it to you in your problems in My Lab Math. But first off, we have A inverse is equal to 1 over something, downhill products, 3 times 4, minus the uphill products, 2 times negative 1. Then I switch these two, and I negate, meaning take the opposite sign of the other diagonal. So that's what it looks like. Okay, this here is going to be 12, 12 plus 2, which is 14. Okay? And so when I take 1 over 14 and I distribute it to everything in here, then I'm going to end up with something you can't see. Just kidding. 4 over 14 becomes 2 over 7. 1 over 14. Negative 2 over 14 is negative 1 over 7. And then 3 over 14. And so that is the multiplicative inverse of this. So if I multiply these two together, I will get the identity matrix. Okay, let's talk about matrix equations using multiplicative inverse. So here's a matrix equation. It's made up of matrices and often denoted with the letters A, X, and B because X is the variable matrix. A is considered the coefficient matrix. Those are all the coefficients of your system of equations. Those are the variables you have. And then they actually call these two that are just 3x1s, they call them column matrices. And matrix B, they call it the column matrix, but matrix B is called the constant matrix. So we have the coefficients times the variable equal the constants. Now, the most important thing that you need to remember, if you have a matrix equation like I just showed you, that's AX equals B. All three of those are matrices. If it has a unique solution, then X equals A inverse times B. And that's what you need to know. That's the most important thing. And that's what you got to write down. And sometimes you'll do it in class calc, and sometimes you'll do it by hand. So in this particular problem, let's pause for 1 second. So in our last example, using the inverse of a matrix to solve a system, okay, this is a 3x3, and you will never have to find the inverse of a 3x3 by hand. You will always use class calc or a calculator. So we've already put it in there before, okay? But you think about, remember what we just talked about, AX equals B, and X equals A inverse B. So when you use class calc, you're going to put the A matrix in there, okay? Now you think about our variable matrix, which is X, Y, Z, and you're going to put the A matrix in there. But when you go to the next step, so put that in, define that in class calc as A, but you need to find this button right here. It looks just like this, actually. It says A inverse, okay? And make sure that when you type this matrix in for A, and then you have to push this button, that button that I highlighted in yellow, to make sure you're getting the inverse of the matrix, and then you put in matrix B as that column matrix. And when you do, it will spit out the answer, which is 2, negative 2, and 3. So make sure you do that before you take your lesson check so that you will know how to operate that correctly. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to come see me or email me. Thank you so much for watching, and y'all have a great day.